Tana, good morning.
Good morning.
It is so good to have you on.
Always good to see you, Maria.
So, I am really thrilled to introduce you because you're our first guest of the day for the Fit Expo live experience. And I am really happy to say that we've become friends over the past 8 years or so, but really very closely over the last year and a half or so since my book came out. And you and Daniel have been so incredibly supportive to me, and I just want to thank you so much for that. It's meant so much.
I appreciate it. And you've just always been so gracious. I remember the first time I met you, I think was on ABC's show,
The Recipe Rehab
yeah.
show.
And
Yeah.
I'm not a chef, and people were not very friendly, and you were just so kind and so great. And so I think we've been friends ever since then. So
I'm, the thing that I love is that you are just so genuine, and you genuinely, with your nurse training background, though, you as a person are so genuinely interested in whole health.
absolutely.
And I'm really excited to talk today about the food-mood connection, and really how our food choices integrates into our ability to be happy. But at the same time, you have a new book that's coming out, and I really want to dive into that because your book is really a very unique one in that it's your memoir, and I'm so excited for it. I'm so excited to read it.
Thank you so much, Maria. Yeah, it's called The Relentless Courage of a Scared Child. And one of the reasons people keep asking me, why did you write I mean, I've written 10 books and they've all been about nutrition, fitness, food. And I was going to do a cooking demo today. And I thought, first of all, my house is under construction. Second of all, I wanted to do something a little bit different because you've got enough people doing that. And I applaud all the people showing up. You've got probably three groups of people: the people who are super fit and just are going to show up anyways, the people who are looking for motivation, and the people who are really struggling. So I'm going to speak to the people who need a little motivation and who are struggling mostly.
And can I just say, Tana, the most put together people are struggling right now.
100%.
We are living in unprecedented times. I got two hands raised right here.
Fitness does not equal health. Okay.
We all need that. And you know what? It's not just, I don't know if you heard my introduction, but it's never a shame to admit that you need help, that you need support. So
these are unprecedented times. Yes. I mean, we were in crazy times. And I will never forget the day that the world ended. My husband came home. He was getting on a plane. His new book had just come out, The End of Mental Illness, or The End of Mental Illness. And he was on a plane or getting on a plane to go to New York. And it was the day the lockdown started. And they canceled everything. I was grateful that they canceled it. I didn't want him going to New York. But he came home and he said, you know, we're in for a ride, and our clinics are going to be slammed because people are going to get really depressed. And he said, everyone's talking about washing hands, but mental hygiene is just as important as washing your hands. And I'm like, you know, that's so true. And, you know, whether you believe in coincidence or not, I don't. I had written my book and it was just finished just prior to the lockdown. I didn't plan it that way, but it's really about overcoming anxiety, trauma, depression, grief. And we are in these times that are just so crazy on so many levels. I mean, we haven't seen this before. So you can be fit on the outside and you can be broken on the inside. And that was me. And I wish that this information had been the information we have access to now with the internet and all the experts and social media is way beyond what we had when I was growing up and just a broken mess and suffering. And that was one of the reasons I finally decided to put it into words. Besides that, I couldn't do it because my daughter was too young and it's pretty gritty. So there are things you just don't tell until your kids are old enough to understand, right?
I can relate to that. Everything that I post always has the kid filter.
Right.
Would I feel proud showing this to my kids in 20 years?
Right. People read the book and they're like, wow. And I'm like, no, that's the family friendly version. I promise you. So.
Well, thank you for your honesty and your vulnerability in doing that. We're really excited to read that. Let's talk a little bit about food and mood, because I think there has never been more of a time that we need that support. And I think, you know, we have a tendency as human beings to reach for the things that bring us comfort. And maybe that comfort food is not always the best food.
100%.
So how do you kind of just mentally prepare yourself to not want to default to that and actually get the good stuff into your everyday?
So I'm going to backtrack just for a second. I think people are pretty intuitive, but they don't know it. So I want you to think of a woman with PMS. Okay, what does she reach for? She reaches for chocolate, wine. She reaches for carbs, pasta. Why? Because she's trying to settle down. During that time of month, your serotonin goes down. Okay, your hormones shift, serotonin goes down, and serotonin is the don't worry, be happy, feel good hormone.
Just give it to me. Yeah.
Right. And so you're looking to settle yourself down because you're like,
yeah.
And so you want to like, okay, I don't want to rip people's faces off. What do I do? So we want to be able to know that and be able to eat smart carbs, healthy carbs, not carbs that are going to make you sick, fat, and depressed. Because what happens is if you just reach for the simple carbs, yeah, you're going to get that quick boost, but then your blood sugar is going to go up, then it's going to tank, and you're going to make it worse.
Right.
So everything you put on the end of your fork matters when it comes to your mood. Now, if you're the opposite, if you're a person who can't focus, you kind of goofy all day, you're foggy, you got brain fog, you got ADD, you need the opposite. You want to start your day with protein. Okay, you don't want simple carbs during the day. So something like an avocado and an egg. If you're plant-based, you still want protein. Make it plant-based protein. Do a smoothie. Don't overdo it with fruit, though. No fruit juice. Don't overdo it with fruit. Put a lot of fat in there. Some plant-based fat. So I like almond butter, avocado, coconut butter, that kind of thing. But you want to boost that fat and healthy protein because that will not only send the signal to your brain that you're satisfied, and you don't need more food, but it's going to help you focus longer term and balance your blood sugar. Because when your blood sugar is not balanced, it's going to affect your focus and your mood. And dopamine is what you need if you've got that more foggy brain. And dopamine is the like motivation, let's go get it done hormone, or neurotransmitter. So that's what I mean when I say everything you eat affects your moment to moment decisions, and the decisions you make day to day affect the quality of your life. It matters. It matters what you eat. And we're feeding people in drug rehab centers and prisons and schools the worst food on the planet. And don't get me started on schools. Like I said, I wish this was around when I was a kid. I was so anxious. I grew up in a very chaotic environment. It was awful. I had these stacked stressors as a teenager. One day I find myself over a toilet bowl throwing up my Cheerios in the morning, but nobody was looking at food. Nobody was looking at, they're just like, oh, tell us about how screwed up your mom is. Okay, well, maybe there's stuff going on at home, but there's also ways that you can take control right now with the things that you eat. And when you eat certain foods, you're going to increase cravings, you're going to increase impulsivity. So you're going to increase that compulsive behavior, that impulsive behavior.
Well, sugar begets sugar, right? So if you're always like fueling up sugar and you're looking for that quick fix because your body needs energy, that's going to always be your default, right?
Right. And so you really, this is so important what you guys are doing because, I mean, during these unprecedented times, you can do these things that empower yourself. I had a bunch of comments on my page from the post, and they were just across the board. Is this going to help me learn about how to eat food to manage my anxiety? Can I learn about cooking pans? Like what are the best cooking pans? These types of programs in these crazy times are how you maintain your sanity. Reach out and stay connected to groups that are empowering you. Get off social media that is just going to drive your anxiety. Focus on your mental health, right?
Definitely limit the news these days, right?
Since the election started, I just can't turn it on. I just can't.
And managing our mood and what you said, and I want everybody to really tune into this, is integrally related to managing your blood sugar.
Yeah.
Because when you manage your blood sugar and you're eating in regular intervals and you're eating food that maintain your blood sugar, you will then have the whole fuel, not just the quick burn fuel that you need before a workout, but you'll have fuel for your brain function, for your nervous system. I mean, your ability to make decisions, these are all very important aspects of managing your whole mood.
Right. And everything's not the same.
Yeah.
I'm ADD-ish, and so like a modified keto type diet with a lot of plant-based fat, I mean like high fat.
Yeah.
Serves me well. So I eat like sometimes 70% fat. And like people are like, what? Like avocado, olive oil, coconut butter, almond butter, nuts. I mean, all day long I'm eating fat. and then healthy protein, and then I get my greens. But I really try to limit a lot of other carbs. My daughter, who's more OCD-ish, if she eats that diet, she just focuses more on the things that make her crazy. And so you really need to know your brain type. You can actually go to our website, and there's a free brain type assessment at brainhealthassessment.com.
I'm going to write that down in the note. Brainhealthassessment.com.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's really powerful because when, there's no one size fits all. And I think when sometimes you'll see lists on the internet, you'll Google like, what are the best foods for your mood? I mean, yes, strawberries and berries in general are good, but that isn't all you should be eating. We need to combine them with other things.
Yes.
I want to ask, I'm going to flip over just to your book for a second, because in your memoir, you really hone in on some of the things that happened during your childhood that are uncomfortable to talk about. And I've met you, Tana, many times. I see you. You are the most put together, beautiful person inside and out. And I see you and I'm just like, really? She came from that? How did you take that and become the warrior that you are without letting it destroy you?
So it was a process. I think people take different paths. It was my childhood was hard. And then some of my trauma later was self-induced. I mean, we do stupid things. Like, I'm so glad there was not the internet when I was, in my 20s.
I think about that all the time.
Those decisions matter, but it's all in the book. But anyways, there was a point where I really was so broken, Maria, that I started to build a facade. So I thought, if I just, that fake it till you make it, well, it doesn't really work very well. So I kept building more of a facade. I learned how to do makeup really well, hair really well. I worked out so hard. I transferred purging from I couldn't even say the B word. So I transferred that when I was young into purging through exercise. I just I would go sweat it out if I had a fever. I didn't use exercise in a healthy way. And so I thought, if I just look good enough, no one will see how screwed up I am. Mm-hmm. And so for a long time, that was the approach I took. Well, that doesn't work forever. Eventually the dam breaks, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So people sort of judged me in a way, and I couldn't understand why people would think I was stuck up, or people, when I first started speaking, they'd actually say, what do you know about me and my life? Look at your life. And I'm like, they really don't know me.
They don't know my life. Yeah.
But they're seeing what I actually created.
Yes.
So how fair is that? And eventually it took me time to be able to want to share that. It's not easy to take the mask off. It's not easy to say, okay, I'm going to show the ugliest parts of me, because you risk being judged. When you write a book about nutrition, people don't like it. Okay, so what? You don't like it. But when you write a book about your most vulnerable, your really tender spots, and people criticize it, that hurts.
Yeah.
So you have to get to this place where I love Byron Katie's saying, where she says, what other people think about me is none of my business. And I made that my mantra for a long time. And so
wait, say that again. I need to write that down so I remember it. What other people think
about me is none of my business. What you think about me is none of my, and I used to be so worried about what people thought of me. It was crippling. Mm-hmm. And I can honestly say now, I'm really just not that worried about it. It's very rare that someone says to me to criticize me really gets to me. It's like, I have people, you imagine it, I'm sure you get the same thing. When you are even a small scale public figure, you get, even because of my husband, just the people that come to my page, you get criticized. And so now my response is, thank you for your opinion. It's just like, people love you, people hate you. It's not going to be your fault. It has nothing to do with you.
So it sounds to me, the relentless courage of a scared child is really not only your story, but it's your reckoning of how to manage life and how to deal with the trauma that occurred in a way that didn't break you, and those life lessons that you can share with other people.
Yeah, it's life lessons, because this is not a self-help, 4 days to mental health. No.
Yes.
It's not. I wish I could tell you that's what it was. It was a process, But you know, the saying, a wise man learns from his mistakes, a wiser man learns from someone else's. And so I started being really honest with my daughter about stuff when she was about 12. Because I mean, now in this day and age with social media, it really starts younger than that. So I would tell her stuff age appropriately as she was going along. By 12, I was like, you need the gritty truth. By the time they start middle school, it's almost too late. I mean, there's boys with porn on their phone. There's, you know, girls are already, you know, taking laxatives, and you really have to be close to your kids.
Yeah.
And so I started telling her the truth about my at that point, teen years, because tweens are like teens now. And so, and I think it really helps. And I told her that. I'm like, if you're smart, you're going to have to make some mistakes.
Yes.
But if you're really smart, you'll learn from some of my mistakes.
Yeah. Yeah. So, well, and I think as parents, we want to shield our kids as much as possible. And I think that there is a lesson to be learned in all experiences. I will say I didn't have the easiest childhood either. I'm the child of immigrants. And I think just being an immigrant and coming to the United States and leaving everything you know behind is intimidating enough. But then you don't even realize what the child goes through with all of the, you know, input at school and judging you for how you look and how you talk and your family. And it's a lot to deal with. So always kind of taking care of our kids in that way. Can we talk about the mood of our kids though, since we kind of are on that subject, because so many of us have teenagers or kids at home right now, either in a hybrid school situation or maybe full-time at home right now, trying to navigate school and everything else. How do you manage their food and mood? Because children can be pretty challenging with their moods.
Well, especially right now.
Yeah.
So when the pandemic first started, we've got our two nieces that moved in with us. We became their legal guardians just before the pandemic. A lot of family chaos, you know, a lot of addiction in my family. So we became their guardians. We got them out of foster care and sort of nurtured them along, and then we ended up taking them in. And so they not only have this background of trauma prior to quarantine, now we get quarantine and everything is shut down. And then there's my daughter who's never really experienced anything traumatic like that, and suddenly her whole life shuts down. And so we've got these two weird dynamics of trying to balance kids with severe trauma and someone who's really never had trauma, and this is the end of her world. And so it was a little weird, but they all were going through something. And so you know, I am guilty of it, and I'm almost embarrassed to say it, but I at first was like, you know, I just can't deal with trying to be the food Nazi right now. I just can't. Because they've lost too much. I'm trying to focus on getting whatever food I can at the grocery store because the shelves were empty. And they're so devastated that that's just the last thing I'm dealing with right now. So I gave up a little bit, and they started eating not the way we normally eat, because I'm usually very focused on very healthy food. The one good thing is I was cooking a lot, but we were eating a lot more simple carbs and, you know, rice and pasta, potatoes, things that we don't normally eat. And then I started to notice that my daughter started driving and was going to the store and sneaking like snacks into her room. Within weeks, they were all acting wonky. Within weeks, my daughter got severely depressed. My older niece got severely anxious. And so I was like, what is happening right now? And my daughter's depression was overwhelming. And so she's at that age where she pushes back. It's like, you don't know everything. Yeah. She came in my room and she's like, I need to talk to you. I'm really worried about myself. And so
what maturity to actually admit that.
And she said, what do I need to do? I'll do whatever you tell me. And so at that point I knew it was bad, because when a 16-year-old tells you they'll do whatever you tell them, you know something's wrong.
You know something's up.
And so we cleaned up her diet and got her journaling and got her meditating, praying, and doing yoga. And within a week, it changed. And I went back I'm like, you know what? This giving in and being really lax with the diet, I wasn't rigid with it. I wasn't like, you have to do this. But I started educating. I started lovingly telling them, look, if you guys aren't feeling well, you need to like look at what you're eating. It affects your moods. And I started teaching them, and I got the little one cooking with me. Yeah. And so when she had more control over it, she started to understand and take it, you know, be more receptive to it. And so, but they changed within a week.
I think I think, your daughter is unique in that she came to you. I think sometimes we see low grade depression symptoms. We see our kids just not having the energy that they normally do, reacting really aggressively when that's not in their nature.
Yeah.
And I think being able to redirect them with, better food choices can be gentle. It doesn't have to be like, hammer down and everything out of the pantry. But what I've found, and I don't know if you've ever done this, I found if I get snacks ready and in the front of the pantry, I set my refrigerator up with cut up produce. I have hummus there. I have, my kids love nut butter. So having things that they can easily grab, but that's closest to the front, it's almost like merchandising the shelves at a store. That's what they're going to grab for.
No question. They'll go for what's convenient. But also, so when I wrote my last cookbook, it's one, and I don't know if you have done this strategy as well, but
and say the name, please, so everybody knows.
Brain Warriors Way Cookbook.
It's
my favorite cookbook I wrote, and I made the recipes as simple as I could. And one of the things I did is the dessert section is the biggest section in the book, and they're healthy desserts, but they're really tasty. There's I think there's like 25 desserts. And the reason for that was because if you make a healthy dessert, like if they come in and they see brownies, they're not really going to notice that they're gluten-free, dairy-free, keto brownies. Or my waffles, that they're keto waffles, there's literally no carbs in them. They don't really notice it as long as they're there for them. So it's like, I don't have to make something. I don't have to go grab something. I freeze them. They're almost like those Eggos, but they're healthy. And so, if I make them, a cobbler or whatever, they're going to grab that. Now, does that mean they're never going to go for something else? Of course not. They're kids. They go to their friends' houses. They go do stuff. But if they're doing that 80% of the time for a kid, that's pretty good.
Yeah. So, I mean, I made this morning, I made for everybody my no-bake oatmeal peanut butter chocolate chip cookies from the book. And
recipes rock, by the way.
They're like no bake. When people say I can't cook, I always laugh. I'm like,
you don't have to.
Babe, you don't have to cook.
No, you are a chef. I can't cook. And I ended up on recipe rehab, and I had no idea how I ended up there. And I'm like, why am I here? So you trust me. My husband says I went from disaster to master. If I can do it, you can do it.
And it's about simplicity and good whole ingredients. Do you have kind of a wardrobe? You talked about high fat, and for you, how high, like especially plant-based fats work. So the avocados, the nuts, seeds. I'm such a big fan. I've been doing, so I have to share this tip, especially for all the ladies watching. I've been taking 2 tablespoons of flaxseed a day. I get the golden toasted flaxseed, and I literally, like, if I don't just eat them by themselves, I'll sprinkle them on some yogurt or throw them in a smoothie or whatever. My nails and my hair are growing like crazy.
I love them in my smoothie. Yeah.
Crazy. I mean,
I cook. So like things like they're really great when you're doing gluten-free stuff. So like my waffles, I put flax in there. Yeah. It's really good to increase your fiber anyways.
It's a great substitute for an egg for anybody who's vegan too.
You want to increase your fiber. None of us are getting enough fiber in this society. I mean, very few people, unless you're focused on it, you're not getting enough.
Yeah. But what else do you like to keep in your food wardrobe, so to speak, to help with your mood and your family's mood?
So I have to focus on the fact that we do have sort of the kids eat a little bit differently than I do for their moods. So for me, I like the high fat stuff, like what I talked about. So I like high quality protein. I'm not vegan. I tend to not do as well on that. I did that for 3 years and it didn't agree with me quite as well. But I don't eat a ton of protein. So I eat high quality, grass fed, free range, that type of thing. Yeah. So I eat some eggs.
You like bison?
Yes.
You eat bison?
One of them. Yeah. Lots of fish. So I do, a lot of salmon, those things. And so, but also a lot of greens. So some berries and a lot of greens. I don't tend to eat a lot of other fruit. That's just for me. I have to fight insulin resistance. It's genetic.
Yeah.
But I'm managed to keep my hemoglobin A1C at 5.3 as long as I'm very strict about it. If I get off of that and I start, getting lazy with my diet, it creeps up.
Yeah.
So I can't be lazy with my diet. And that means for me, even fruit. For the kids, lots of fruit. They get fruit, They eat their veggies. We always have tons of greens. I do sweet potatoes. Like they love sweet potatoes.
I love sweet potatoes, and great for insulin management too.
Exactly. So, but smoothies are sort of my go-to fast food, if you will. And then I love coconut wraps. Oh my gosh. And one thing that we do love, and even for the kids, is real fermented sourdough bread. So the gluten-free, truly fermented sourdough bread. I will eat some of that once in a while.
Yeah, I do too. I'm a big fan of sourdough. And, for people listening to understand, when you talk about, what's that?
Not the commercial stuff.
Not the commercial stuff, yeah. But when you look at food and mood, okay, there are several things to think about. We've talked about managing your blood sugar. Also, very importantly, managing your gut and your gut microbiome. I mean, your mood and your immunity is right. Can everybody just point to their gut right now and say, this is my gut? This is like the core of my being.
So people don't even get it. When they come to see us, we have psychiatric clinics. And when they come to see us, they're a little thrown off because the first thing we do is start with their food and their gut. And they're like, what? I mean, if they're suicidal, yeah, we're going to put them on meds and then we're going to backtrack. But we start with the gut. I mean, we start with food, and we get our best testimonials from people who get their food right. So it's interesting because yes, by now most people understand that 80 to 90% of your serotonin is made in your gut, but it's so much more than that. There's a direct connection. We now know the vagus nerve goes right from your gut to your brain. So if your gut's not healthy, there's no possible way your brain, your moods are going to be the best they can be. You're not optimized if your gut's not healthy. There's no way. All of the things that those healthy bugs are responsible for doing in your gut, they can't do if your gut's not healthy. So even if you're just not absorbing your minerals right, now you've got an overgrowth of bacteria. There's all these things that go wrong, right?
Leaky gut syndrome and
you've got all of these problems. I mean, even besides leaky gut, just not absorption. You're not absorbing things right. So there's so many things that happen, and all of those things affect your mood. So we start with that, and that's another thing that I talk about in my journey. I sort of reflect back on. It's like when I was so sick as a kid. I was always sick as a kid. I've had 10 medical surgeries. So plus I had cancer 3 times. It's like, we didn't know that. My mom was a 16-year-old runaway. She was not one of those, even though she grew up in the 60s, she wasn't a hippie. She didn't really get how nutrition, applied to anything. I grew up on Frosted Flakes and Lucky Charms. I was a latchkey kid. So I just wonder. Yeah. My health would have been different. Would I have been on all those antibiotics that destroyed my gut if we had had this information then?
I think it's maybe the most important message that any parent can hear. And certainly it's never too late if you are a parent or an adult that's grown up eating that way to change. And today is a new day. And I can't emphasize enough how food will change your life. Tana, can we talk a little bit about when your book is coming out and how people can order it?
So it's up for pre-order now at relentlesscourage.com. And I've got over $400 worth of gifts for anybody who, also we have an event coming up December 12th. I've got amazing speakers. And it actually enters people to win a full evaluation at Amen Clinics. So we're really excited about that. And they're sort of tied together. But the book is at relentlesscourage.com. It's actually released January 5th. But up until then, we're going to be doing a lot of fun things, over $400 worth of gifts, and we're trying to get people excited. So
people can order it now. And I think when I'm really about meaningful gifts this holiday, and we're including your book in our gift guide, which I'm really excited about because we got to get away from the materialism. We've got to feed people's souls and their health, because that is the ultimate gift. And I just want to thank you, Tana, for being so just courageous yourself and for being the true vision of a warrior, beautiful inside and out. And you are a gift to so many people around you. So thank you for being here this morning. And if anybody we can take a couple, just maybe 1 or 2 quick questions for Tana, and then we're going to have to let her go. So if anybody has, actually, there's one quick question from Annie P. COVID-based anxiety. Someone should I'm not wearing my glasses, obviously. A proper term. It's a real thing. I know that's not a question, but
100%.
How are you telling people to manage through COVID-based anxiety? I know we've all had it.
So my husband and I have been doing a ton of live chats on this because some people, we actually have a ton of people doing really well through the COVID-based, transition because they're hermits anyways. They're
I was
introverts.
going to say they're probably, they're not real social people.
Right, it's the extroverts that are having a hard time. And then some people did really poorly. They were fine during the lockdown, but then they didn't do well during the social uprising and upheaval. And that was me because it triggered me from memories of my childhood.
Yeah.
So we saw both. So really it's about that mental hygiene we talked about. You have to be disciplined with your thoughts. And so meditation, journaling, your food matters, and making sure you're moving your body. So if I could do, say, 4 things, so get up in the morning and focus on gratitude, journal, and pray and meditate. Start with that. Get your food right. So start with maybe some warm lemon, lemon water with ginger is what we do here. Yeah. And then get your body moving. Just my husband does laps around our house when the weather's or when there's a lockdown. It drives the kids insane.
I can see Daniel just pacing.
Okay. He does meetings on the phone. He does all of his meetings on the phone, walking around the house, the dog following him and driving the kids insane. But he's moving, right?
Yeah.
So just get your body moving. You don't need a bunch of expensive equipment. Just move your body.
Yeah. And I will also just say one thing to people, because I see a lot of people saying, should I be fasting? Should I be doing cleanses? Look, it's very individual. And if, again, let's go back to blood sugar. If you're one of these people who, you get a little hangry if you're not eating in regular intervals, you really need to watch that, because you're not going to be able to make good decisions. And little things that would not upset you will get to you. I can look at my daughter, my beautiful 19-year-old daughter that is always sweet, and I can see when she's starting to become a gremlin.
My daughter is, orange just pop up right through the halo.
So true. Yeah. All right, Tana, we will leave you at that. Everybody, pre-order The Relentless Courage of a Scared Child. I have the link here with all of the free bonuses, and make sure to follow Tana. Best place to follow you, Tana?
Probably Instagram. So
Instagram.
Just yeah.
At Tana.
And that's where I'm most active.
On Instagram, and I'm over there all the time. I'm always like, yeah, girl, yeah, I love it.
I love your comments. Thank you.
All right, my dear. Have a wonderful day.
I'm so appreciative of you. Have a wonderful day.
You too. Now, for everybody, don't leave. Stick around. We have our next speaker up. That is Allie Landry. She's an actress. She's an amazing speaker. She is going to be talking with Dr. Nayan Patel about glutathione and the glutathione revolution. You need to listen to this. It can really be a huge asset for your life. And we have so many other great speakers. So stay here. We'll be back at 9:15 Pacific time. Don't go away. We got lots of good stuff coming up. Bye, Tana.
Bye, hun.